Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast. I'm Jessie Lizak, CMO at BDEX. This week, co-host David Finkelstein, BDEX's co-founder and CEO, is in Las Vegas at CES, meeting with people about Omni IQ and some of the other fun things we're working on here at BDEX. But catch him live from CES tomorrow here on BDEX's page. But today, our guest co-host is BDEX's CTO, David Welborn, who we call DW. I'm going to bring him in. Hi, DW. How's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Not too bad. Thanks for being here. Welcome back to Deconstructing Data. I guess we should say Happy New Year since this is our first episode of 2023. But let me bring in today's guest. Hi, May Habib. Thank you so much for joining us today. How's it going?
Thanks for having me, Jessie. Nice start to the year. A little slower than anticipated in terms of my energy level, which is what happens when I take time off. I need to remember how to work hard again. But otherwise, perfect.
Definitely. I know there's a lot of people going through that same very thing because we all just took a lot of time off for the holidays, which at least most people did. But as I mentioned, today's guest is May Habib. Thank you again so much for being here. She is the co-founder and CEO of Writer. And before founding Writer, she was the vice president at one of the world's largest sovereign wealth funds, where she was the first employee on the technology investment team, building a portfolio now worth over 20 billion. And May started her career in New York at Lehman Brothers, where you help US software companies raise capital. And you have an AB degree in economics. And what I was reading is you graduated from Harvard with honors. So that's all really impressive and makes you highly credible. So thank you so much for joining us on the Deconstructing Data podcast today. So welcome and thank you so much again, like I said, May.
Thank you, Jessie. It's been a while since someone has gone back that far. So I appreciate it. It made me feel young,
I mean, you were on Inc. website. I mean, all you got to do is go Google search May and you'll find her all over. There was Capterra, there's your LinkedIn bio. So a lot of really great, impressive information. I mean, I had to condense that. Probably could have had it at like 3 pages. There were a lot of awards in there I didn't mention, but yeah, we're very lucky to have you on. But could you kick us off by just telling us your full story? What led you to Writer and, what problems you'll help people solve at Writer?
Yeah. Jessie, it's so funny that I come up at all, actually, because you all cover a lot of SEO on this podcast. And in Arabic, May Habib is like the worst SEO woman's name you could have, because it's like Jane Doe. It's like your very generic, like first name, very generic last name. So I'm glad you found something.
No, you are at the top. That like I only saw stuff on you I never would have known. So that's really impressive.
Well, let me start with telling you all about Writer. So Writer is an AI writing platform for teams. And unlike other GPT-powered applications, Writer's training and our models are based on customers' own data. So they're best performing blog posts, landing pages, ads, emails, and their brand guidelines. And so the result is content that comes out of Writer, whether it was AI taking the first draft or a person writing the first draft. It's content that really feels and sounds and works for the brand. And we were very excited that the whole world heard about this field, thanks to the wonderful consumer application that is ChatGPT. But we've been hard at work for 3 years, really bringing AI-powered tools to companies. And the result is we already have got just an incredible roster of SMB, mid-market, and enterprise customers, hundreds of them, who have done things like double organic traffic in a month, improve CTRs by double digits and triple digits, massively improve the amount of content, great content that their small teams are producing, and all very quickly, actually. So it's been a really, really exciting ride. Our customers are folks like United Healthcare and Accenture and UiPath and HubSpot and Spotify and Deloitte. So we work with really, truly the leading edge AI practitioners at these companies, folks who, whether they're in marketing or customer support or product, who are using technology to improve processes. And, they don't think about it as like, I'm using AI, they're just solving problems. And it's been really fun. And, the how did we get here question, Jessie, I guess, the long personal version is little May learning English when she moves to Canada. And then the much shorter professional version is all of the lessons we learned and the opportunities we saw actually building our previous company. So the core of Writer, most of us worked together in a previous company called Cordoba in localization and machine translation. And two things became really obvious very quickly as we scaled that business. Number one is companies don't have a way to control the language that their brands use externally or internally. And so you think about all of us having visual guidelines for our brands for what they should look like, but not what they should sound like and how people should write. And all of the research that we saw was that impacted your funnel way more than, did somebody use the right shade of purple for a CTA? And the second big thing that we were seeing in 1819 was that transformers were really going to change writing forever. And a lot of, does transformers mean anything to you, Jessie or David?
Yeah, my sister worked in translations.
Oh, amazing. Translations.com?
Yeah, she worked at on her own. She's translating to and from 5 different languages.
Wow.
And she did it all just in her head.
Oh, that's amazing.
80 words a minute. I was so impressed. But
wow.
But then they started asking for people to use certain platforms, and quite frankly, it was never as good as her just doing it.
Yeah.
But that might not be true now with AI.
Yeah. Well, we'll dig into this. What was very clear very quickly with what transformers were able to do is really like there's a multiple step function increase in quality for language tasks. And so we started Writer in January 2020, and then we launched September 1st, 2020.
When you talk about transformers, you're actually referring to an AI framework that's being used now to create art and things like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
It is a type of machine learning.
Right.
Machine learning model.
And how did you get writer.com? I know pre-show you were going to tell us.
And then you ran out of time. Well, it's funny how you get ideas for things. I originally really loved the word omni. And, for the kind of control we wanted to give brands and, our vision for how folks would use AI to do that over time, I thought omni was pretty perfect. And I grew up in a blue collar town across from Detroit, Michigan. And I grew up in a tool shop, and the owners of omni.com were this Michigan based tool shop. So I was like, fuck yes, these guys are going to sell it to me. I literally wrote emails, wrote letters. Like if they were going to sell it to anybody, they were going to sell it to me. And my stories were like anecdotes about like me going to school with like steel shavings in the soles of my shoes, all very true. And like, I thought would resonate with this, like, 2 generations in the business family that owned omni.com. Anyway, literally it was like crickets. And separately, my brother-in-law WhatsApps me because he was helping me. He's in the comms industry, and he WhatsApps me like a mock-up of a homepage, and it says Omni Writer. His name is Fadi. I was like, Fadi, this is so funny. I was thinking about Omni as well, but I told him the story. We can't get the domain, etc. And then, hours later, I'm like sitting in bed after a shower, and I was like, wait, what about just writer? And so then that was like the idea of the name, and then getting the domain. We're actually only the second owners of all time since the beginning of the internet. Yes. And a wonderful man, I won't say his name, he's a very private person, has owned it since the 80s, and was waiting for kind of the big payday that you do when you own a domain like that. We had only raised like $3 million. This was like seed, post seed. And we built a relationship over the whole of COVID. Basically, I think I contacted him in April or May. And then we got the domain finalized mid-August. So it was literally every Saturday I called him.
Wow.
Yeah, he met my kids.
Relationship. Oh, wow. That's amazing.
It was great. He was really wonderful. And then we registered the trademark literally that week. So we own the trademark as well.
Very cool. Yeah, the name stood out to me as definitely being impressive. But should we just jump into the first topic?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, I'm going to pull it up here. AI for marketing and advertising. And this is one of the topics that we worked with your team on beforehand, and we wanted to do a deep dive into AI for marketing. And we talked about solutions that generate language for digital marketing, collateral, website creation, and more. Could you dive in and just tell the listeners sort of the basics all the way to the advanced steps on all of this stuff, and what some of the brands are able to do that you've been able to help?
Yeah, absolutely. Marketing is one of the real first use cases that has gotten a lot of attention for generative tech, because the output is so easily accessible. You can so quickly grasp an image generated by AI, or a blog post that used to take a whole day, now taking an hour, like that kind of acceleration. There are a lot of use cases under the surface, and we work with customers on everything from like sending content via API across databases, to things in learning and development, to HR use cases. So marketing is what we talk about even on our own website as like number one use case. But by the time customers really become native to what AI can do via the very accessible use case of marketing, they really start to get it and really start to understand all of the places in their business that they can apply it. So I'm glad you started with marketing, but I do want to make sure that like the audience knows that like we have already, especially for the early adopters who got started here a year ago, they've already moved on to bringing AI into the rest of the business. Now, within marketing, think about top of funnel all the way to bottom of funnel. So from the digital marketing and paid acquisition side of things, all the way to case studies and like post-sale communication and all of the like nurture and email that happens when somebody comes into the funnel and becomes a customer. There's so much writing and content that happens across that whole funnel. And so we really help folks break down the potential use cases for their business by walking them through from demand gen to content marketing to product marketing to brand marketing that encompasses everything. What are the bottlenecks within their business today? And then what are the drivers actually of top line? Because one thing we can't ignore is just the macro this is all happening in, right? It is amazing that there have been all these tech breakthroughs that have happened at once, and solutions like Writer are available. It is also coinciding with a environment where, number one, folks are cutting headcount left and right. And so there's a lot of distrust, I think, of unethical uses of technology to replace people, number one. And number two, even when teams are like, this is exactly what we need, and like, here's how it's going to fit in, getting buy-in from folks outside of marketing who are going to approve budget is absolutely still and is going to increase, I think, actually as a challenge in the first couple of quarters. So we work really closely with customers to help them understand, like, if they could snap their fingers and suddenly they had more of X to produce more of Y, what would that thing be? And we really work backwards from the channels that are driving actual revenue for a business to understand, from content marketing to brand marketing, right? And product marketing and demand gen in between, like, what would really move the needle for their business? And that becomes the first place where we dig in. And there are just incredible case studies of success across those kind of sub functions of marketing, from the team at Emotive doubling SEO sourced traffic in 1 month by using Writer to blog every single day. And those types of results are really evergreen, to folks using Writer to improve copy and brand compliance, reduce the amount of rewrites and editing they have to do, generate 4, 5, 6 times more content on the knowledge and help center front. And we do this all in a construct where the human, the writer, is in the seat. Done a lot of work with our community. If you go to writer.com/blog, you'll see a ton of it. If you follow us on LinkedIn or follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see us talk a lot about this. AI is not a replacement for wonderful, talented, skilled writers. And in fact, if you have none on your team, don't even attempt using AI, because you're going to end up scaling up a bunch of shit that does nothing for the brand or for traffic. We've developed a content maturity framework. It applies for more than just content marketing, frankly, really for marketing orgs as a whole. We've taken them into account, and that's on our blog as well and on our LinkedIn, for when and how folks should really be thinking about how to integrate AI into their marketing operations. So, at a high level, Jessie, we could spend the whole hour on just marketing applications. That's a bit of context setting for folks who are just getting started.
Absolutely. And I mean, AI in marketing and advertising, that's a huge topic. We could talk really about anything, and even, to some degree, what we're doing with OmniIQ, right, DW? So machine learning is just a form of AI. It's just another application. But anything you want to say on it before we move into AI for customer support?
Yeah, you already kind of answered one of the questions I was going to ask. What do you say to people that look at to AI as a risk or a danger to their jobs? Used to be automation did away with factory jobs, and now we have AI, which is sort of a knowledge worker automation.
Yeah.
And so, what do you say to those people that are concerned about losing their jobs? I think you kind of started answering that already.
Yeah, there's not been a single customer at Writer that has downsized a team, or gotten rid of a headcount, or pulled down a job rec, because they brought in Writer. What they have been able to do is be really aggressive and ambitious with the targets they put on their marketing team once they bring a tool like Writer in. Because what we're doing is we are supercharging people who are already really, really good. And when you can take your best writer and, she can now do in a week what she was doing in a month, is just an incredible acceleration, because good work begets good work. And so much of a funnel can actually, grow as a result of the kinds of seeds you plant early on, especially when it comes to top of funnel acquisition. So, when you are actually hands-on in the tools, you understand that you are by no means out of a job anytime soon. Because if you work in B2B and you got to write the ultimate guide to hiring a fractional CFO because, you've got a blog targeting startups who, do this, Writer's going to give you an excellent first draft, right? It is literally going to shave off a day of research and drafting. but like you'd cut off both hands before you let that go on your website representing you with your name on it, right? Like it's just kind of embarrassing if you let it get published. Now, that's a 2,000 word ultimate guide. Folks who are doing smaller content, smaller pieces of content and content types, where we have customized a model and customized the training of that model for their content and what their writers have been producing, absolutely are automating stuff with no human review after, which is excellent. That's where we want to get to for lots of different content types. And those writers who are working on that content are now doing other things. So there is just like no shortage to the types of ideas that creative teams want to get to increase their businesses. And especially on longer form content, you know, the technology is excellent and the results are really, really good. But there is just so much work that still needs to happen. We call it post-processing, and it encompasses all sorts of things before the content that comes out of the AI clay is ready for prime time.
So if anything, instead of cutting jobs, it might actually increase the value of the group that uses writer.com, and they might have to hire.
Well, 100%. I talk to a lot of CMOs and I get very excited, and folks who like came up through content, you know, like when was the last time marketing was the heart of like the most innovative technology and like wave, right, coming to companies? And like when has content been like the heart of the heart? And so it's just so fun for our audience to be the center of the spotlight and the center of this conversation. And it definitely, you know, on the flip side, ups the ante for folks really knowing what they're talking about when, you know, they're kind of put in the spotlight of talking about whether the company, like, it's time for us to use AI. Is it time for us to use a tool like Writer? Like, what should we be looking at? A lot of people are in the hot seat now in marketing to kind of have answers for a board, for a leadership team.
I see you have pricing for individual contributors as well, right? On your site.
Absolutely. Yep.
$18 a month, I think it is. And it's free to try. I might try it myself because I can never seem to bring myself to writing these blurbs I'm supposed to write once a week on LinkedIn. So I think
totally
I'll be one of your customers very soon.
Yeah, you totally should. Well, we need to get you a writer seat.
That would be awesome. And it sounds like social posts would be the ideal type of content, since they're shorter for AI. Is that the type that the writers were able to set and forget, as you were mentioning? To be like short social media.
I've got all these little ideas on little Post-its, you know, that I need to like flesh out. And I just like, I want to sit down and start writing, you know, so it's like, I'm sure it would help.
Definitely. Well, let's move into the next topic because I'm curious to hear what you have to say about AI for customer support. I did customer support for a short period of my life, and I know that it's a lot to handle. And so any AI that you can provide, you know, that would help in this scenario, I know a lot of people would be all ears. So what would you say to them about this?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, on the support side, the two things that we have seen customers just really quickly adopt to, you know, a lot of success. Two main use cases. Number one, chat support. And we work with customers who are conversation designers. And so they're using Writer to create the kind of flows that they were doing pretty manually before. So we're not like live answering customer support questions. There are definitely companies that do that, but we are being used to create the content that the bots are answering. And then the second big thing is knowledge-based content, help center content, and technical writing. Really incredible adoption there, especially at B2B tech companies, both consumer and B2B actually. Consumer tech around being able to use Writer to edit content that subject matter experts are submitting, and then automatically write first drafts of content that people are drafting. So lots of great use cases for AI on the customer support front.
Oh man, that is a lot. And I mean, we only have 18 minutes, so I'm just going to just roll on to the third one. So decision making for AI or AI for SMB, small to mid-sized businesses. So tell us about that if you don't mind.
Yeah, what do you mean by that exactly?
So, well, I guess when we were planning this topic, what we were saying is like, the very biggest enterprise companies are trying to build their own company specific AGI, artificial general intelligence. So, what will it take for that kind of solution to make its way to small to mid-sized businesses? And, what kind of decisions will it be able to make? And how far are we away from that right now?
Yeah, really, really good question. We've developed technology that allows us to incorporate proprietary company data in what the foundational model returns. And that's all really important because otherwise the answers can seem like very credible bullshit.
Yeah. I feel like it'd be hard to trust.
Exactly. And over time in enterprises, this is really going to feel like a AGI for the business, like an all-knowing type of service that really understands, what prices look like, what your packaging is, who's in charge of brand marketing. I mean, it is really exciting stuff what is possible. How that rolls down to companies that are much smaller, that don't have the data to train a version of a foundational model for their own company, but certainly have proprietary information that's very specific to their company that they'd like incorporated. I think that that application layer has actually been yet to be built. It is stuff that is on our own future facing roadmap. And I'm really excited for us to really translate what we're doing in the enterprise for smaller companies down the road, because what is beautiful about the foundation, no pun intended, that large language models give us is that the type of reasoning that they can have and make on top of data really, really approximates very intelligent human reasoning. And, I'm not going to go as far as say it's sentient. It's not. You unplug it, it doesn't work. To me, that's not sentient. So, it is, though, very much huge leverage. It is hard for us to hold everything in our head, whether you're an enterprise, you work in an enterprise company, or work in SMB. So very excited for decision AI to come into the SMB market.
Absolutely. Anything you would add on that, DW? I think you're on mute if you're talking, DW. That's happened to me quite a number of times.
Talking that there isn't AI for that yet.
Oh man, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I got muted when you asked me about that. I said it's like being data driven and intuitive at the same time.
Oh, that is amazing. That's amazing, David. Yeah, I think that's a great, I think that's a great way of saying it. Data driven and
intuitive
never
at the same
forgetting any data, and intuitive at the same time, right? Because that's the beauty of machines, is like they literally forget nothing. And that can be very profound, right, when it comes to making business decisions.
And they don't, get tired or jet lagged, and then their critical thinking goes out the window. No, that doesn't happen.
Totally. I was reviewing a book. I didn't buy it, but it looked amazing. Around just winning, the science of like peak athletic performance and any kind of performance. How we make our best decisions in the morning, and then it is just a super steep drop off. Yeah.
After that.
Yeah.
Definitely. So that was all good. So decision AI for SMB. So, I mean, do we want to talk a little bit? This is sort of not related, but with SMB, I think I can't help but bring up Omni IQ because a lot of what we're doing with Omni IQ, has now given access to small to mid-sized businesses to identity resolution and machine learning to expand their audiences and utilize their first party data to learn from it. And I think that a lot of these things, we think of AI as being something that enterprises have been able to use, but little by little, we're seeing this type of technology, and we're part of that, in terms of what we've done with Omni IQ and getting it into the hands of SMBs. It's all very interesting.
Very cool.
All right. Were you going to add something, DW?
I was going to ask a question. On LinkedIn in particular, I get these ads saying content generation and write 5 times faster and stuff like that of, I guess, potential competitors to you. What would you say differentiates you from the rabble?
And rabble it is, honestly. I think what is awesome about being in a hot space is your prospects get this like instant education. But of course, the quest for differentiation and that bar goes way, way up. And it's really what I said at the beginning, right? Unlike any other GPT, transformer, generative model driven application, with Writer, what comes out of the models is trained on a customer's own data and their own style guide. So it is head and shoulders better than stuff that they've experimented with, which is just so gratifying when folks, kind of get very excited about AI, but then, introduce their team to, the rabble, and folks are like, what? No, like your sister, DW, like I'm better off writing this myself. Really being able to then look at Writer and see how our content can power growth programs via that automation tends to be a big relief.
I hope I understood this properly from the small bit of research I did, but I believe you have a patent on the learning methodology, right, of the natural language.
Yeah, we've got a number of patents and then published, but not everything published on what I've been speaking about, but hopefully soon.
That's great. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Well, shall we get into tech stack? This is something we ask each week. We love to ask our guests, what type of tools are you using to make your life or your team's life more efficient? Can be anything. So yeah, what do you have on your list, May?
Like most people, I'm just like a dopamine monkey. And I actually love Gong for when I'm like hours into something like deep, and we have an amazing team. So I'm really not running any team. And so I get to do like longer term thinking and planning. And, I tend to, which is all wonderful. The downside for me is most of the things I actually have to deliver to the team tend to be hard things that take a long time, and I'm easily distractible. And so I love Gong because we record all of our customer calls and all of our calls with prospects, and all of the emails for like cool deals that we're doing are all tracked. And so it's kind of like my dopamine hit when I'm working on something big, to like just be checking I get distracted way more than I'd like to. But 10 to 15 minutes being like, oh, that prospect responded and this agreement is going to signature and that's doing that. So I love Gong for that kind of like really up to the minute type of transparency that we get on just movement of the business. And then, we've got a really, really strong marketing and go-to-market ops team. And the stack that they have set up to allow us to do attribution, which I know is like holy grail in marketing, is pretty amazing. And they did a ton of custom work around it. So I know that it's not all the tool and mostly not the tool, but we've built around a tool called Dream Data that I think allows us to do some very exciting things, given that we are a mix of self-service and sales assisted. So I would say those are the two kind of standouts over the past few months in our tech stack. I'm in both products, pretty hands-on, just looking mostly. But yeah, those would be the two, Gong and Dream Data.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I definitely have heard a lot about Gong. Have you heard of Gong, DW?
No, I assume that's a platform for recording all the calls, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I worked on IVR systems, but not Gong.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
Very cool.
I'm making notes here, so I keep looking down.
Well,
I learned so much from these interviews. Yeah.
Oh, I know. That's one thing I love about doing the podcast is like we get to talk to all these really amazing people like yourself, May, and then we get to learn so much and ask, open-ended questions and listen. So thank you so much for that. We do still have a few more minutes, so we're at the portion of the show where we just get into these questions, the post-topic questions, if time allows. So if you don't mind, May, could you go back when you first came into the industry? I guess maybe the AI industry. And what is the number one piece of advice you would give yourself today, knowing what you know now, but entering it then?
I think the expect the unexpected might be something that I would try to distill into a like pre-AI May. And, like we are in AI, so like we definitely understand just the power laws of how most technology works. In crossing the chasm, and I've been a student of that for a while, I think we had been just so linear in terms of seeing the progress of AI adoption. And just like, I mean, really basic things, even a year ago, folks not feeling like, they could entrust an AI tool with like their editor's pen to, where we've gotten in a year around, brand voice edits and AI generated first draft. So, I have really felt like what I thought might be 3 or 4 years of not the technology. I mean, the technology actually that folks are so impressed with today. A year ago, we were selling. I think the big thing that I wasn't expecting was just how quickly the market would begin to cross the chasm between like super early adopters and just kind of like early majority. So we're obviously thrilled because it's happened so fast. And our customers and prospects look like geniuses because they are. They, stuck their necks out when people didn't think AI was good enough and are now ahead of the pack. So I think that would probably be the biggest thing as we started Writer, or even in those months as we like really agonized almost on like the decision to start Writer and really focus on this versus what we were doing. That once the adoption happened, it would be exactly the kind of riding the wave that we wanted to be getting to, and it was going to kind of happen like that versus gradually.
Oh man, that's good. What about you, DW? What have you learned, I guess, since being at BDEX? That you would like to tell your pre-BDEX Dade self? I don't know if I said that right.
I don't mind. Yeah, I don't mind saying that this has been one of the more challenging engagements, that I've been involved with. I've been in startups since the year 2000, and they've all had their challenges and really interesting experiences. I've learned from everything, but from all of them. And I've always said, like, 1 year in a startup is like 7 years in another company. It's
Totally.
fast paced, and you have to hit the ground running. But that's especially true here at BDEX. So, what would I tell myself, like, before coming to BDEX? It's going to sound funny, but I would have moved a little more quickly than I have, which we've moved pretty quickly already. So I know I don't know how to sum that up in 30 seconds or so, but sometimes you have to move quickly, but every now and then you have to throw out the old completely and just do it again, and it's actually faster. And sometimes we take the safe evolutionary route to things, which I've always done. And this is the first time I've ever thought, looking back on it, it would have been faster if we just like started over, leave the old system running, but then have like a brand new one next to it, and start shifting over to it. So
fail fast.
Yeah, I fail fast, but it's also a revolutionary change. Now, revolutionary changes tend to bring a lot of risk. And if you go into an ongoing concern, you're always better off at least entertaining an evolutionary approach before a revolutionary one. But there are cases where a revolutionary approach is needed.
100%.
Absolutely. Well, that is all really great. Thank you both so much for sharing that. In closing, May, would you like to tell listeners how they can find you?
Yeah, totally. We are super engaged on LinkedIn. That's our platform of choice, both the writer account that they can find just by putting in writer in the LinkedIn search bar. And then myself, May Habib on LinkedIn. We really try to dig into the upside, the dark side, the concerns, the benefits, all of the things that are actually happening in companies and teams who are trying to adopt AI writing into their processes at scale. So it's a super fun journey. And yeah, excited to connect with your community members there.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much. And DW, thank you for taking an hour out of, I know, your very busy day. We've got a lot of stuff in the pipeline right now for
Well,
you
I
and
wouldn't
your
miss it. It was very, very interesting. I had a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate both of you being here. And I'll just, if you could hold tight, I'll close out the show here really quick because we want to make sure and tell listeners that if you're inspired by this, you can also listen to this on our podcast. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you listen to a podcast. This live broadcast will be on that podcast here soon. And also, if you were inspired by this, you may like Omni IQ. We mentioned it a couple times throughout the show, and I'll just throw up the QR code here, but you simply just create an account. It's free. You don't need a credit card, and you can upload a CSV of your customer data, and then you'll get free complimentary analytics on gender, birth year, as well as household income. So really cool. We would love your feedback on it. And you can also upgrade and see more information and create some extended audiences. So simply go to BDEX.com, click try it for free, or you can use this QR code on the screen. And we would love to hear from listeners. So you can reach out to us at info@bdex.com, share your qualitative data with us so we can make this better for you. Thank you all for being here and happy 2023. And we will see you next week.